Okay, without further ado, the next topic is on something I've been told is very dear to our community, because a good international friend of mine told me, how does it come that the main topic on all of your social channels is Deutsche Bahn? What is going on there? And yeah, we have Vanessa from DB Fernverkehr. Apparently you can't just model a train in Netbox. I don't know why.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for being here. As many of you may have experienced already, a conference is even better when there are talks about trains. So here you go, the DENOG17 train talk. You can just model a train in Netbox about architecting and running modern train IT infrastructure in trains. But first, I want to get to know you and who I am. I'm Vanessa Gaube. I'm 27 years old and working as an IT infrastructure architect at DB Fernverkehr. And why am I here today? Most of you have running infrastructure in a relatively relaxed environment, like a data center or an office building. That's not what we are doing, and we have some challenges with it. And so we want to explain you what our challenges are, and maybe there are synergies in the future if we understand the challenges of each, I would say, operation model a little bit better. Yeah, I'm also, of course, doing stuff besides in-train IT, for example, teaching networking basics at the Cooperative State University Baden-Württemberg. I think it's phrased correctly, or also stuff like nearly everyone does, building experimental IPv6 only infrastructure in my free time. Now, about you. Who of you arrived actually by train? Ah, that's very much it. Who of you arrived by ICE or IC train? Still most of you? Well, that's nearly 100%. Yeah, nice to see. So, who of you did use the passenger information during the one? Okay, not as much. Most of you knew where you're going, or just sitting into the train and hoping. Who of you used the in-train Wi-Fi? Also a big part of you. That's nice to see. So we are talking about how this works, but to start, we need to understand trains. Trains, how are they built? In general, we have more or less three generations, three models. Let's start with the basic ones. We have a locomotive and coaches. How they are connected, they have really basic electrical connection with the UIC cable, which from our perspective doesn't do much sophisticated stuff. You have interesting features on that, like zeitmultiplexe Wendezugsteuerung or seitenselektive Türsteuerung Fernverkehr. Sorry, I'm not going to translate that to English. You can look it all up on Wikipedia how it works. But yeah, it's not really networking technology. It's like the basic safety critical technology. Then we move forward to a so-called multiple unit, or in German Triebzug. We have like the first generation down here with a fixed power car and then some coaches, but tightly connected to each other. There we already have like a train-wide bus or the train-wide network. For example, the Class 401, the ICE1. And then in the further development, we go to the distributed power. Fixed combination of vehicles with distributed power units, so no dedicated power car anymore. These, of course, also have train-wide buses or systems. But what all of these are together, all these core functions, like doors, like control, that are considered like OT or an embedded system. From our perspective, you can think of it like an embedded system or operational technology. So why do we actually need IT in trains, and how do we do it? Well, we have like two worlds. On the right side, you have really the safety critical functions, like emergency buttons, or the loudspeakers, or the door control. On the left side, you have all the non-safety critical comfort functions, like our nice guy sitting there and looking at how fast are we going, where we are, reading a newspaper, or looking what is available in the board restaurant to eat, what can I maybe even order directly. We have the passenger information, and what we are actually doing, we are separating that, because we don't want to get the left side to get in touch with the right side. And what we are today doing is focus on the left side, the IT side. You maybe, you could consider that as IT-OT convergence. So it's like those two worlds. We are focusing on the IT world on the left side today. So to do some IT, we of course need connectivity. Most of you have the easy connectivity, like you have a fiber connection or maybe a fixed DSL connection to your building. That's of course not working for us. So how to connect a train to the internet actually? In general, it's what every mobile connection basically is. Use the mobile networks, use the 5G networks. But we have also some challenges with that. We have like up to 320 kilometers an hour that we are running with our trains, and some challenging conditions. For example, we are roaming between cells, and we are also doing that fastly. Maybe some of you came here from Frankfurt. There's the Schnellfahrstrecke Köln-Rhein-Main, the fast track between Köln and the Rhein-Main area, Cologne. And yeah, there you have a tunnel with maybe has a mobile cell, then a bridge, and a few seconds later, next tunnel. So this roaming is already challenging. Then we have areas where we have low to no coverage at all. That's something we need to plan for. Then we have the point of international usage. Our trains are not only running in Germany, also going to Switzerland, Austria, Netherlands, Belgium, etc. So what is our solution? Well, we aggregate everything possible, so every possible connection, multiple providers, for example, and yeah, we also need to plan for unstable or completely unavailable connectivity. That's not only relevant for the services that are running on the train, but especially the operation of the infrastructure on the train. So now we have connectivity on the train. How to get the connectivity to the customer? In general, we have Wi-Fi on the train. That's nothing special from the layer 2, layer 3 perspective. Like it's just multiple access points connected to the same layer 2 network. The interesting part is everything below it, like the layer 1, the RF conditions, the radio frequency part. You have like a big metal pipe with access points in it. The big metal pipe moves, so also the relative position of the next coach to your coach moves depending if you're on a straight track or sitting in a curve, etc. You have obviously issues and need to consider reflections, like the signal-to-noise ratio. How high is the access point coverage and visibility? Again, what I said. It changes all the time if the next coach is moving before you, and then it changes relatively quickly. You have dynamic interference, for example, in train stations. Two trains, maybe even of the same type, sitting next to each other, obviously behaves much more dynamic like an office building would. Another challenge is the access point positioning. Of course, ideal, like we all would build it with the access points in an office building, we would place it above the passengers, above the users. But the question in the train, do I have space there for access point and antennas? Does it fit into the design? Is stuff like passenger information monitors still available? One of the possible solutions you see in the picture on the right, like an enclosure under the roof, integrated with the design and placed that the passenger information is still visible. So we have the connectivity on both sides, but we need to distribute the traffic over the train. How do we do network and compute? In general, the in-train network also nothing special on the layer 2, layer 3 side around here. We basically have a standard layer 2 network with STP-based redundancy. Yes, I know you're not really loving STP from the previous talk, but yeah, it just works. Usually the network is per multiple unit, so it means multiple vehicles that are fixed connected to each other. There are not really fancy features like overlay networking, EVPN, layered fabric or something like that. Most of the time we're using a 10 gigabit per second backhaul, also for most of you also Boeing probably. Yeah. What's important? Local management, including topology discovery, because the topology could be changing. We are covering that in the next slide. So important is we need to do everything locally. What's also interesting, usually copper-based Ethernet is easier to handle for us, especially during maintenance. It's just more robust than a fiber connection. And what's also like a special use case, we have a passive layer 1 pass-through that connects the network in case of a power outage. So that's how a network could look, like 2 switches per coach, each interconnected, Ethernet connections, backbone connections between the coaches. Yeah, that's basically it. So really, nothing really special from the layer 2, layer 3 perspective. Obviously, we need also local compute. Due to unstable connectivity, there's no other way than to have some local compute available. You need like EN50 155 certified industrial hardware. We're using that just standard x68 hardware with Linux. And the main tasks are basically on the one side, the operational support for all the infrastructure running locally. On the other side, providing offline or at least cached services for every service that is available locally on a train. So what actually are we doing in terms of hardware, and what's the challenge over here? Well, we of course need industrial equipment. You can see an example on the right-hand side. What's unusual to most of you, we have M12 connectors instead of AR-45, like the standard copper Ethernet you are probably used to. Also, power is a little bit different. In trains, the 110 volt DC is nearly the standard, which obviously also changes a little bit, maybe a little bit more than in the data center with really high quality power supply. We don't really have a standardized form factor we are using. Weight is really relevant. So there's nothing like just buy a 1HE19 Sol switch and place it into the rack. There are special certifications and regulations, so it's really difficult to find off-the-shelf hardware, especially from big vendors. The available hardware then often has a limited feature set compared to the data center infrastructure. It's more like the OT, operational technology network hardware, and less the modern network backbone with maybe EVPN, etc. That we're used to in data centers. And what's also important, the maintenance aspect. The hardware needs to be swappable by electricians really around the clock. When the train comes into the workshop, there's nothing like a network administrator, etc. available who can do the hardware swap. Some of you said in the workshops, keep electricians away from network cables on Sunday. That's not really an option here. And what we also need to do, of course, is automatic reconfiguration in case such a swap happens. So how are we configuring and naming everything? Well, I've named the slide many trains changing identities. Let's start from the big perspective. A multiple unit in German Triebzug is identified by its number. You see it on the top right, it's the 9478. In this case, that's basically the whole group of the train. Then each unique vehicle has its own UIC or EVN, European Vehicle Number. You can see it on the picture on the bottom. And then we have like vehicle types, which is, you can think of it as a template, which defines what is in there. And then we have like 50, maybe even 100 instances of this type. So like a vehicle type, and then we create, let's say, 90 vehicles, all with a custom UIC number out of that vehicle type. All of that with everything I already said, automation, the local capability, etc. Another point is the vehicles in a multiple unit are swapped between each other. I will go into detail in the next slide. You can imagine that like a little bit, you have your data center fully equipped. You have one fully equipped rack with all your hardware, your configured hardware. Then you're going into the data center, taking the rack out of it, replacing it with an identical rack, but it has another number on it, and then you need to integrate that all back into your network. So that's a really interesting use case for the traditional tools and not really covered over there. So it's not just easy to model a train in Netbox. Yeah, how could such a swap look? I have taken some real-world data from the ICE with the ID 0304. And that's the initial configuration. You see you have these 3 first coaches. I think the left side is the Endwagen first class, then the first class wagon, then this second class wagon between the first class and the board restaurant. Some of you may know it. And that's the initial configuration. But then something happens, and for some reason we need to exchange these 2 coaches. I go back and forth. So if you have a look, we have 004 at the beginning and 104 at the beginning, and then we take some other ones. They have the same hardware built in, but they are other coaches. And in this case, that could happen at night or something. We automatically need to discover that and reconfigure all the network. So that's obviously a challenge we need to take account for. So now that we have named and identified everything, let's go on how to build and operate the infrastructure. The first problem is lifecycle. A train usually lives for about 30 years. A large redesign usually at half lifetime, so after 15 years, you already see this lifecycle is completely incompatible with our used IT hardware with little bit shorter expected lifetime usually. So when to upgrade? Of course, new generations, new architectures introduces new variances. The in-place maintenance, so swapping hardware with the same model, is not really a big problem. It happens all the time, around the clock, when a train comes into the workshop, which of course also means we don't have that easy maintenance windows. Like, it just happens every time. But the important question when to redesign the hardware architecture, how long does a rollout take? It's much longer than most of you are probably used to. A multiple-year rollout period for such changes is usual. I have an ICE1 in the example. The ICE1 has currently a second redesign. It was built in 1988 to 1939. The second redesign started 2020, including, of course, Neo IT, and is approximately finished in next year, 2026. So you see, this lifetime alone for this change is really, really long to what you probably are used in the data center world. Then management. It's nothing unusual to have 2 sites, to have a central data center inventory management, an IPAM system, more or less central monitoring, but expecting stable connectivity between all of that, between your monitoring, your orchestration, your inventory, and your sites where the hardware is actually deployed. That's nothing we can do. We expect unreliable connections all the time. So we basically need to have a local copy, a local mirror of all of that we have seen right now. That also does mean cloud-only management is not really possible for us. We need some type, at least, of local management, just because we expect to have no cloud connection when we drive to a certain area or something like that. In summary, running modern IT infrastructure in trains is, of course, possible, as you have heard. it introduces new challenges, especially compared to the data center infrastructure. You need to keep in mind the number of trains and the flexibility. You need to maintain the flexibility. You need this automatic reconfiguration. The life cycle and the hardware swaps are much more complicated than planning a data center change. The flexibility and the amount of instances is of course difficult with traditional tooling. You will never have a really stable connection. Like, independent of what you're doing, expect your internet connection to be gone. Yeah, and everything around hardware is especially challenging. Like, what hardware is available, the sizing of the hardware, the life cycle, the maintenance of the hardware needs to be doable. You need to find space for the hardware. You need to power the hardware. Heat dissipation is also a thema. So, yeah, interesting use case, and especially with the hardware, it's yeah. So. That's the end of my slides. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank my team for the support of these slides, and obviously the DENOG team for making all this possible. And yeah, with this nice picture of the ICE, you know now Triebzug or multiple unit 9488 driving into the night in Karlsruhe. I want to wish you a safe journey back home with a stop into the closing.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. Questions? Now is your chance. Here we go.
Hello, Q here, and noted other train nerd. So, question about what happens when there are two trains that are coupled or uncoupled. Obviously, like the train control networks need to be connected when a train is coupled, but is the infotainment, so to say, network then also coupled, or do they just maintain themselves apart?
It's just like a separate train with the network, like we are doing it over here.
And they just happen to be running around together.
Yeah, yeah, of course. But there's nothing happening on this side.
Okay.
If you already have questions, make yourself known here.
Hi, Nicholas Cotton speaking for myself. Are you evaluating the usage of satellite communications for uplink connectivity in the trains to compensate the poor network coverage we have in some parts of Germany?
There's actually nothing I know anything in detail about, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Karim from Aukost. Interesting talk. I was just wondering, do you have content caches for Netflix and stuff like that?
Not that I know of. If you have a CDN and a good idea about that, come talk to me afterwards.
Freddy of Init7. Are you using Wi-Fi in the workshops to connect the trains?
I must also say in the workshops that's not my special area, but the connectivity for the train itself, it's mobile networks, what I have on the slide earlier.
Hello, Francisca here. You mentioned the train part, the carriages get swapped. How often does that happen per train set per month, roughly?
I wouldn't say not so often. I don't have any data on that, but it's like more. It's only when it's really necessary. We must prepare for it, but it's nothing like that happens on a daily basis.
Mark Haber, freelance IT consultant. You might know me as Zugschluss. The class 412 has 13 cars. The Talgo ICEL has 17 cars. I think you have 2 switches per car, so that makes well beyond 30 switches in a single spanning tree domain. How did you manage to get that to work reliably?
That's a good question. I just can say that it apparently works.
Hi, Nicolas, speaking for myself. Since the ICE Media Portal also has video streaming on it, and it seems like those videos are on train, how do you feed those videos onto the train? Do you do a nightly rsync over the mobile network, or?
Yeah, we are doing over the air, of course, like everyone does, but we are just expecting unstable connectivity for that.
Hi, Sebastian, also speaking for myself. You told us that when you swap trains, the network needs to reconfigure.
Yeah.
What kind of reconfiguration are we talking about? Is it like renumbering IPs? Is it like... so what needs to happen in the network if a train gets swapped?
It's a little bit too complicated for the... for the question, but at least we need to change like the identifiers, the UIC numbers everywhere they are used. That's like the minimum that needs to happen.
Hi, Rose speaking for myself. You mentioned the different classes of trains. For example, the ICE3 Neo 408 or the new ICEL have laser cut windows, so your mobile phones can connect to the outside world easier. Is that something you're working on? Because for the moment, when you want to have information about how fast your train is, connections, or if you want to order something from the board bistro in first class, you're only able to do it via Wi-Fi on ICE. Is like with those laser cut windows, that's something in the future you're looking into with outside connection to those information and entertainment systems?
That's an interesting question and probably idea behind it, but no, currently that's like you choose to use a mobile or the on-train infrastructure, two completely separate worlds.
Andre Grüneberg, V6. Have you enabled IPv6 and do you have plans to enable IPv6?
Bingo!
To be honest, I have expected the question much more earlier. It's like only the 4th time this DENOG I was asked that. Who of you has the same question? Okay, that's not really much of you. It's of course not really easy to roll out IPv6. There are talks about it on that event here too. So yeah, it's not that like you just flip the switch and then it's working. You need much more consideration, and obviously also the user demand for it to do, etc. That's why I was asking. Yeah, we are talking about it, but as you know, sometimes IPv6 architecture plans, etc. is difficult.
It's complicated. I think we have room for one more question there, and then I would suggest we will cut the queue. Already, please, people, move to the inside. If you're sitting on the edge, please, people will come in.
Hi, I'm Marcus. A personal question. Is there any way you can increase the MTU on the Wi-Fi in the trains? Maybe 1500?
Probably the same answer as the IPv6 question. It's complicated. Applies here.
Okay. With that, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.